Yo, beautiful people. Once again, welcome to Teledom TV. And this Kwame Tele doing the talking. You know, there's this thing I want to react to, and that's what will make you know the side of the coin I am when it comes to which team I actually support. I'm a Chelsea fan and a Hasselhoff fan. So today I'll probably talk about Chelsea because there was a major casualty yesterday when Thomas Tuchel was sacked or was relieved of his duties as the Chelsea manager. And am I happy? I'm not happy when someone loses his job or her job. But as a Chelsea fan, considering the past 2 years, when this man came to the helm of affairs, or when he was appointed to be the manager of Chelsea, from that time till now when he's been sacked, let's look at the pros and cons of everything. Every human being is infallible. We are liable to mistakes. But when you make mistakes, what do? You rise up. But that's not probably what happens when it comes to my club, Chelsea. Chelsea is a very ruthless club when it comes to dealing with managers. When results aren't coming, you'll be fired. The least you do, you'll be fired because the standards are very high. Now let's look at Thomas Tuchel as a manager. This is someone who came to the club, and within 6 months of being the manager, he won the club the Champions League. That's the second Champions League. He won Chelsea the Club World Cup. He won Chelsea the Super Cup, though we've won the Super Cup before, but he added another Super Cup to our trophy cabinet. Now this manager was relieved of his duty yesterday based on poor performances in 6 games. 6 games into the season, he's been relieved of his duty. The performance was abysmal. As a Chelsea fan, I must admit, was abysmal. Thomas Tuchel seemed not to have his perfect first 11. Thomas Tuchel seemed to be playing players out of position. And it's like there isn't a template. When you go to Man City, there's a template. Liverpool, there's a template. Why am I mentioning these two clubs? Because these are the clubs probably we are trying to compete against. Last season, Liverpool and Man City ran away from Chelsea when our 2 wing-backs, Ray James and Chilwell, got injured. Things actually turned upside down for Chelsea because we were probably one of the contenders. But it got to a time when our wing-backs were injured. We couldn't sustain, so we had to fight for top 4, which we did, and we were successful. Now, the manager went through a lot. He got divorced. His wife divorced him. He was still manager of Chelsea. He went through that storm. There was a takeover. Chelsea was put up for sale by Roman Abramovich because of the war going on in Ukraine, the Russia-Ukrainian war. And you know, Roman Abramovich, the owner of Chelsea, is a Russian. So probably there were sanctions, and all his properties or assets in the UK were frozen. So Chelsea Football Club was put up for sale, and Tuchel and then the Clearly Consortium actually bought Chelsea for £4.25 billion. Thomas Tuchel was the manager of Chelsea throughout all these things. But when we're going through all this difficulty, he was the manager of Chelsea. Now should I say he was even serving the role of an assistant sporting director to Todd Bowley when Granovsky, that's the former sporting director, Granovsky left. When Peter Cech, who was the performance advisor, also left. Now these two were relieved of their duties because the new regime thought it wise to actually use their own people or to bring on their own people and then to work. They didn't want to have anything to do with the old regime. So after the transition, they have to let go of Granovsky and then Peter Cech. So the sporting director work was probably on Todd Bowley, that's the owner of Chelsea or a part owner of Chelsea, and then the coach Thomas Tuchel. Now, players were signed for Tuchel in excess of almost £300 million. 6 matches into the season, as I said, the performance was actually abysmal. He was relieved of his duties just after they lost to Dynamo Zagreb. Our best game this season probably was the game against Tottenham Hotspur, which Chelsea was unlucky because the 2 goals Tottenham scored were probably goals that, if VAR had been consistent with the referee, those goals wouldn't have stood and Chelsea would have won the game. But the game against Southampton was very poor. The game against Leeds United, where Chelsea lost by 3 goals to nothing, was also very poor. The game against West Ham, not good. Chelsea had to ride on luck to even win that game because the goal West Ham scored in the dying best of the game, which was ruled up as a foul on Edward Mendy, the goalkeeper of Chelsea, was probably to me, and to other referees in the game, was actually a goal. So the performance in these 6 games, probably taking away the Tottenham game, the 5 games was very bad. Our first Champions League game too, the performance was very bad. But why don't we give Thomas Tuchel a chance or time to actually correct the wrongs? Chelsea was very ruthless. Chelsea never considered managers when results are poor. And I thought that was probably under the reign of Roman Abramovich, because he was actually a result-oriented owner. Someone who only wanted wins and wanted trophies. So when Todd Bowley and then the Clearly Consortium came to take over, I thought things would probably change. But 6 or 7 games into the season, and the first casualty in the Premier League, or the top 6 of the Premier League, is Thomas Tuchel. And this is one of the elite coaches we can get around. Now, sacking Thomas Tuchel, you are bringing on board Graham Potter. He's actually the leading candidate, and there are talks ongoing. He's been allowed to talk to Todd Bowley. Brighton has actually allowed him to talk to Todd Bowley. So Thomas Tuchel leaving and then Graham Potter coming, it's a downgrade actually. I know people may reference it to 2012, where AVB, that's Andres Villas-Boas, was shown the exit. And then our legend, Roberto Di Matteo, came to the helm of affairs and then won the Champions League. But what happened? He was relieved of his duties just into the new season in the 2013. So, giving Thomas Tuchel a chance at least. Why don't we wait for the international break? Look at what's happening in Liverpool. They lost 4 goals to 1 in the Champions League just yesterday. They lost in the Premier League, I think, 2 times. The result in Merseyside isn't the best. But the owners, the Fenway Company or the Fenway Group, I'm not sure will relieve Jurgen Klopp of his duties. His post-match interview yesterday, he made it clear that the owners of Liverpool are not like the owners of Chelsea. I know it's a slight dig at the owners of Chelsea, because he said he will be allowed to correct the mistakes. He will be allowed to make things right. So I think the timing, to me, is wrong. Thomas Tuchel is still elite. You bought Aubameyang for Thomas Tuchel because he had worked with the player before. So why then do you bring Aubameyang and then sack Thomas Tuchel just after 1 game? Why? Because Chelsea needed an out-and-out striker. And based on his recommendation, you brought Aubameyang. And Aubameyang, just first match after signing for Chelsea, you sacked the coach that actually brought him. So what are you doing to the club now? I know Chelsea have actually won trophies after sacking coaches. Chelsea have actually been successful after sacking coaches. But is that the way forward? Giving Graham Potter this job is probably like elevating an SHS student straight away to the Cambridge University or to a higher university. And I'm borrowing the words of Paul Merson, the Arsenal legend. Why then? Why? I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Thomas Tuchel, a manager that has won 3 major trophies. And even last season, it wasn't as if things weren't that good. He was in the FA Cup final, lost on penalty to probably one of the best teams in the division right now. He lost the Carabao Cup also on penalties to the same opponent. Chelsea played Liverpool 4 times last season and never lost a game. And Thomas Tuchel himself made us know that Man City is the benchmark when it comes to football in England. So why don't we give him chance to actually build something of his nature? Now there are people of the view that he's been given almost 2 years and there's nothing you're seeing. But look, as I said, there are a lot of things are actually happening in Chelsea. A lot of things. There came to a time where this guy was actually suffering. He had marital issues. This guy was by the club during the takeover. So why don't you stand by Thomas Tuchel in these hard times? Chelsea probably wouldn't go on relegation. Why? It's too early for me. Very, very early. 6 or 7 games into a season and then relieving an elite manager of Thomas Tuchel's caliber of his duty. It's too much. If this what Tuchel is also coming to do, then I think it's probably the same as the Roman Abramovich era. Even Roman stopped sacking coaches sometime before selling the club to Todd Bowley. So it's actually not good. Now, looking at the record of Graham Potter, do you think he probably fits the bill? Sacking Thomas Tuchel and then bringing Graham Potter, I probably don't agree with that. Persuading Zinedine Zidane, who is actually resting at home, would probably be the best option. Why don't we give Pochettino, who has actually managed characters similar to what we have at Chelsea? Managing Oxtesund in the Sweden league and then Brighton isn't the same as managing Chelsea. Chelsea wouldn't give you 5 years to build. So why don't you lure Zidane to take over? Zidane is someone who probably would love to come and win trophies. Zidane wouldn't come to Chelsea to work for 5 years and then build a team. No. Zidane, per what he did in Real Madrid, you could see clearly he is someone who is also obsessed with winning, or obsessed with winning trophies. Obsessed with winning. He has a winning mentality. And he has many superstars. He has many players who are even bigger than what we have in Chelsea right now. So why don't you lure Zidane to the fold? This my view though, but it probably makes sense to me. And makes sense, I hope it makes sense to you as well. Graham Potter for Thomas Tuchel. It's a no-no for me. And I'm not a prophet to doom. I don't think Graham Potter will probably last. Maybe if Todd Bowley probably want to, be the owner of Chelsea for 5 or 6 years and then without winning a trophy or something, then probably we are cool with it. But my favorite candidate probably is Zinedine Zidane. Why don't you bring Zinedine? Zinedine won the French job. But that's what we call luring. Lure the guy to the fold. Lure him to the Chelsea job. Give him whatever salary he wants. Because Todd Bowley has spent almost £300 million on players. And Thomas Tuchel was on a good salary. So getting Zinedine Zidane, money wouldn't be an issue. Give him a short-term project. That's what he wants. A year or 2. He'll probably win trophies for you. And that, if that's what you want. Graham Potter, it's a no-no for me. Look at the records of Graham Potter. He plays beautiful football. We all know. I love him. He's one of the managers I love. But Brighton, as I said, isn't the same as Chelsea. Östersund in the Swedish league isn't the same as Chelsea. So, he is the owner. He sacked Thomas Tuchel. Let's see what happens. But it's a no-no for me. Zidane is my favorite candidate to take over.